My name is Hani Hani. Uh, I grew up most of my life in Chicago, but I was born overseas uh, in Ramallah. Uh, my parents are Aziz and Ellen Hani, which they passed away a couple years ago, and our family tree is the Shakara. And I work for Charles Schwab. I'm a systems engineer for Charles Schwab. Been there for over 20 years. Well, my grandfather, great man. I mean, I knew very little of him. Uh, when I met him, I was 10 years old, spent the summer in Ramallah. My grandfather told me many stories of when he came to America at that, but also at the same time, he wore the conventional headdress of the Arabi men back then with the turban, pretty much, and he was a simple man, and he enjoyed life out there. I mean, I had such a great time with him, and he showed me around the city, showed me, take me to the bira where, all the men bishop kahwa and play cards and that, and just it was simple. The roads were dirt roads. They didn't have any streets really at that time. Uh, and children, they ran, they ran around and had fun. It wasn't like the United States. I'd go from my cousin's house, from my grandmother's house to my cousin's house, which was a few blocks away, where I'd have to go down one street, down another street, down another street. And instead, I'd climb the roof, jump over the roof, and I'd be at my cousin's house, just like that, in 1 minute. It was just a good time. Like I said, I spent the entire summer there. It's the best time of my life. You know, my 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 grandfather. Uh, wasn't a lot to tell in regards to him, other than him being a very simple man and that. But my cousins and their parents, their Saeed and Mus'ad back then, Hani, they owned olive vines, and they pretty much, had a whole. I mean, they had a lot of land with a lot of olive trees and everything. That's one thing my grandfather did show me. When I was first born, the day I was born, he took me to the olive trees. He said, "See this olive tree?" I said, "Yes, I see it." Though, he says, "This tree, I planted it the day you were born." It was a big tree by then. I mean, I was 10 years old, but they grow fast. It was a big tree. Obviously, it's gone now because they sold the land. Uh, but I had so much respect for that man. Uh, when I came to America, he was left by himself. My grandmother came with me. And she raised me like if I was her son. Everywhere I was with my grandmother. My father and my mother worked at times, so I stayed with my grandmother. Uh, One funny story, my grandmother, when I went to the Middle East when I was 10, I speak very little Arabic. I understand enough, but at that time I hardly spoke any. And she asked me, ايش اسوي لك؟ بدك شاد شوربة ولا دجاج محشي؟ I said Jad Shoraba. She calls me a couple hours later, they're all excited, puts a bowl of soup in front of me, and I go, "What's this?" Jad Shoraba. No, 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 I want Shoraba, Shoraba. I'm pointing to the oven. And she went out of her way. She went out of her way, went and got another chicken and everything else, and made it for me, mahshi and that. I was spoiled at the time, and I should have respected that a little more, But the people in Ramallah were also very simple. Like I said, I had a lot of friends, and one day, one of the neighbors, we were playing ball, and I accidentally threw the ball through the window, broke the window. And I didn't run away. None of us ran away. The lady came out yelling and screaming and everything in Arabic, and asked who did it. I said, I did. So had the Merkani, khalas. Just went in the house, and nothing. Nothing. It's like But like I said, it was just a different life, and that. Uh, but also at the same time, I was concerned with uh, the fact that there were jets flying over us and everything else, because at that, it was 1969 when I went over there, uh, and there were a lot of soldiers and all that out around and everything. So every time my mom would go somewhere, I was worried that because I heard of all the bad stories and everything. And I worried. I mean, here I am 10. I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to see my mom again. And that. But luckily, that wasn't the case in that. It's just, simple in that. I know my father, he went back home overseas a few times, to help his parents out at the time. Because one time his father was on his deathbed, and my dad went and got him to the hospital and took care of him and all that. Uh, but they the my grandfather, for example, when my mom, was pregnant with me, my father was in America trying to get the papers for us to come to America. Uh, she all of a sudden had a problem, and they right away took her to the hospital. My grandfather took her to the hospital, and the doctor told my grandfather, "This is bad. Uh, both of them might die, but I might be able to save one. Who do you want to save?" And my grandfather said, "Save the mother. She could always have more children." So, pretty much they went in and just grabbed me, pulled me out, and doctor thought I was going to die after so many days. Eventually, and the way the Arab women are, uh, they see a child that's extremely sick, they're hiding their children. عشان دعين. They don't want, they want my mom seeing to look at their children to give them bad eye. But, I made it, and about a month or so later, my mom took me for a checkup, and the doctor said, "Who is this?" "It's my son that you gave birth to." "Oh, I thought he died." That's, it's very simple. But my mom, as religious she is, that's why she took me back to the mullah, because when she was in the hospital with me, she promised God that she'll give me to God for a year. So I went, and, they dressed me like a Greek Orthodox priest for a year when I was 10. Went through the entire ceremony, and everywhere I went to the mullah, I had to wear this outfit. I mean, as a 10-year-old kid wanting to play around, my mom made sure I wore it everywhere. Yeah, but so when we came back to America, one of our stops was in Greece, and they messed up on our flight. I ended up spending a week there, wearing that outfit again. The whole week, I had so many people taking pictures of me with tourists. So I'm in so many tourist albums. But it was just, it was, if I could, I'd have spent my life in a mullah. It was a different life than America. The kids were simple. The kids with, the broken wheels and that, they take those with a stick and run down the street with that. And they had kites. And back then, I didn't have a kite. My mom, she made me a kite. I guess that's how they do it there. She made me the kite. And all my friends and I and the mullah were flying our kites in the sky. It's just super. I went back to the mullah 5 years ago. So let's say I was 10 back then. I'm 60 now, so 45 years later, I went back to the mullah. I didn't recognize it. I mean, all the streets were paved, buildings everywhere, but I still remembered certain things. I remembered where like for example, I found the church, the Greek Orthodox church, and I remember my grandmother was right across the street, a house over. I found her old house. I remember how to get to my cousin's house. Even though the house is all over, I just followed certain roads and I got there. It was such a strong memory that I just couldn't forget my time there when I was 10. It was like I spent my entire life there. And I really, the day we were flying back, I hid. I did not want to go back to America, but they found me and I had to go back. But it was just, I can't say more about it. And everybody there was so open and so inviting and everything. Uh, just enjoyed life. My mom told me a story when I was there. Uh, we went to this relative's house, and they knocked on the door, and they opened the door, and the girl that was there, little girl about 5 years old, she looked at me and she said, Mom, hide all the food, hide all the food. He's gonna eat our food. The reason she told me the story is because I ended up marrying this girl, and she told the girl, now you're stuck feeding them for the rest of your life. So it's just a great time. My kids, they know their heritage. They've never been overseas. They never have. But that, and only one of them, only got one boy, and the others are girls. And I made sure he was baptized Greek Orthodox. The others are Catholic, and that. But they enjoy their culture up to a point. But in America, I came here to this country. I wasn't even a year old, so I celebrated my first birthday in America. So I, the 10 when I was 10, that was all my memories, and I'll never forget that. But I tried showing my children the culture, and that they were more interested in their friends, unfortunately, and that it's just. I wish they were more interested in their culture. But it's something that's in my heart and it's always going to be there. The convention, I've been coming here. I try to come as often as I can. I actually went to the convention overseas, but I'm alone.